Welcome one, welcome all to another developer interview here on the Xbox Expansion Pass. Today I'm joined by Jonathan Smårs, self-described lead tinkerer at Iron Gate Studio, working on the Viking survival title, Valheim. We're on the eve of their console launch. I am your host, Luke Lore, the Insipid Ghost. Jonathan, thank you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I'm very glad you agreed to come on. I know you guys are swamped. We're right at the cusp of you guys launching onto console. Quite the journey you guys have had for Valheim. I didn't realize the world I was jumping into when I started doing research for our interview. This was a solo project as far back as 2017.
Yeah, that's right. It was Richard, our founder, who started this as a side project to begin with, and then turned out to be this huge game that got enormous success eventually. So yeah, it's been a very interesting journey, and yeah.
If it started as a solo project, that was prior to the founding of Iron Gate. Is that correct?
Yeah, I wasn't part of it back then when he started. He was just by himself. So I don't know the exact details, but yeah, I mean, he started building the project. He put it up on itch, and then he got his old friend Henrik to join him as a co-founder, and then they founded the company, and they kind of they hired a few hires and released for early access, and here we are today. So.
Now, I have to get this out of the way early on. You describe yourself as the lead tinkerer. That's a wonderfully cute and fun title. I don't know what you do on the game though, brother. What's your day to day like?
Yeah, that's kind of a joke. We don't really have official titles. We're a small indie studio, and we can call ourselves whatever we want. So, I just think it's kind of a decent title because it's
Hmm.
kind of like I'm the Richard is our CEO and founder, and he's also the created the game basically by himself in the beginning, and then a lot of us other people joined, and I'm the only other coder. So I'm mainly a coder, but also I worked as a 3D artist, like in AAA a long time ago, and did a lot of other stuff too. So it's a little bit of everything, and that's kind of how we like it at Iron Gate. Is that we are kind of generalists, all of us, working on whatever corner needs the most work at the moment and whatever we think is most fun to work on.
So that's just cool. That's exciting. What do you say? What would you say you spend the most time working on? Like coding, art? How do you like setting things up? What do you do?
Yeah, definitely coding on my part. But setting things up and coding is like same in Unity.
Yeah.
Like there's quite a lot of time on just putting all the pieces together in the engine. Um, just like yeah, getting everybody's work, putting it together into yeah into the editor, connecting it with the scripts, connecting it with the logic, and like trying out the game, playing it together. Yeah, a lot of stuff like
And
that.
how big would you say your team is at this point? Given that it started as a solo project, I know you were brought in, so kind of early on. Where's your project size right now?
Yeah, that's a difficult question to answer. I think like actual developers working on Valheim. I mean, we are 13 people at the company,
Mm-hmm.
and we are maybe I don't know 7 or 8 like actually developing the game. If you want to take like developers, and then we have other things like support and community management and things like that, business things. So
So you would say that like the development team, 7 to 8 people, but then the rest are doing things like working with the community or managing business relationships, that kind of stuff. Am I envisioning that right?
yeah, something like that. But like I said, we all do a lot of different stuff. So I mean, everybody is basically involved, of course, in Valheim in a lot of different ways. So in a lot of ways, I'd say we are 13 people working on it. But
Gotcha.
it really
Even the
depends.
lead tinkerer does interviews, I
Yeah,
hear.
exactly. I guess so. And
That's cool. That's cool. Well, I look at Valheim, and I gotta tell you, as I mentioned a moment ago, I wasn't prepared for everything that this game has done since its inception, the community that you guys have built. But for anybody so if I wasn't prepared, I'm assuming some listeners weren't. I would describe this as a Viking survival game, but I don't think that does it justice. How do you guys describe it when people are asking about Valheim or just what it is?
Wow, that's a good question. I guess if you asked anybody at the company, we would probably describe it in different ways. So I'll just give my take on it, like not being the official, how do you say, the description of the game, but it's definitely
Hmm.
a Viking survival game. But it's also like, um, how should you say? It's like it's a mixture of exploration, but also the creative aspect of you get your own world. Procedurally generated for you, and you can explore it and do whatever you want with it. Uh, like change it as you wish. Build. There's like a lot of people spend a lot of time building in the game. There's some amazing builds that you can see on the internet. Like we are blown away all the time by by people posting their images, and we're very impressed with what people can do with the game. Um, and also the whole, I would say, multiplayer experience. Like you can play the entire game by yourself, or you can play it with your friends, like up to 10 people. And that's, I think, also a very nice aspect of it. Like you join up with friends and you find your own kind of roles within the game. Like people play it in very different ways. Some people like the combat and focus on like bosses and stuff, and some people stay at home and build a house and maybe uh, cook and like gather resources together. There's a lot of different ways to play it, which I think is a really nice aspect.
When I'm watching gameplay videos, and I've got one on my second screen right now, it's pretty crazy. You're dropped onto this map, and you've got nearly nothing. You've got to go out. You've got to use your pickaxe or your fists at one point to gather resources, and then it looks like you are nearly Lego building your different forts and bases, all for the purpose of survival. Is that right? It's all a survival game.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's a survival game, but it's also, I mean, at the same time, it has this progression path of exploring the world by, of course, gaining new items and stuff. But like the main path is basically find these bosses and kill them to prove your worth to Odin.
Hmm.
So I guess compared to maybe other survival games where like if you'd say the focus is only on actually surviving, like we actually have kind of a clear goal where like you're dropped in, you see these stones around you with these symbols on them, and it's basically telling you to, yeah, survive but prove yourself by getting the heads of each boss and putting them on these tombstones that we have here.
Which is just dope and very Viking like, especially given, Valheim being the name. Like you are trying to prove your worth to Odin, get into the Viking afterlife. Is that right? Am I correct? It's kind of like Viking limbo. Would that be a fair?
Yeah, I think so. I I think it sounds pretty good.
No,
I'm not the expert at the lore to be honest,
no
but
problem.
that's basically what it is.
If I sounded like an expert at lore, that's totally what I was going for.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have
yeah,
no idea.
definitely.
No idea. So I'm digging watching this and discovering how people are learning about what to do in Valheim. I'm looking at these different builds that you were talking about, and I assume you mean like the different structures they are building, but I'm sure that there are other ways to interpret it. I'm seeing the coolest tree houses I've ever seen. Like it's taking me back to childhood in that way. To manage the different elements, resource management. I could see a family of four jumping in, each having their own assigned roles. One build the house, one cook, one go out and hunt or fight enemies and stuff, and still not get bored for days on end. Um, is that something you see with your community base?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's really nice. Like we get so many letters from people say like like basically they in different ways they sometimes they have suggestions and stuff, but a lot of the time they just want to describe like how they played the game and how they helped them, and like it's lots of different constellations, like people catching up with old friends that they haven't met for a long time, and like a game that is kind of nostalgic for them, because it's kind of reminiscent of like this retro art style. But
Mm-hmm.
there's also like families where you see like a parent saying, "Oh, I played this with my kids, and this is such a good way to connect,"
Mm-hmm.
and like uh, I mean, it's maybe not for the youngest kids. I wouldn't have my 5-year-old play it quite yet, but because it's a little bit violent still. But
Mm-hmm.
um, but it's definitely something that you can do like with your whole family. Like one of my favorite, there's a Swedish streamer actually. There's like an old lady. I think she's 65 or something plus,
No
and
way.
she plays it with her grandchildren. Like she has this stream where she played. other games with her grandchildren, and we were just like, hey, do you want to try this game? And she started playing this, and she's like, people can play this for hundreds of hours in some cases, or in some cases even thousands of hours. But you can really build, like you said, the builds. Like to play the game, it's not like you're forced to build a lot. You have to build your little camp and build something up. But even though there's no like real requirement to go beyond that, people spend so much time. They can build entire cities. You can like name anything, and you can find somebody who built it. Like these crazy builds, like boat houses and lighthouses and tree houses, like you say,
Hmm.
and also a lot of other stuff that just could, like robots and whatever, like huge structures.
Well, that's cool. And you got your own Skyrim grandma. That's pretty big right there. Like
Yeah. But she's great.
I think that means you've arrived. You've arrived.
Yeah,
Uh,
I guess
so
so.
that's cool. Now, you mentioned at the top of the interview, and of course I discovered as well, Valheim is procedurally generated, and that can bring a number of really cool instances. It can also bring some challenges in terms of building the game. There's multiple biomes within this procedurally generated realm, I guess you would call it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And they are divided up by servers. And how many people can play on each server?
So you create your world.
Mm-hmm.
You like you specify a seed if you want to have like the same world as you've had at different time. But otherwise, it's completely randomly generated, procedurally generated,
Mm-hmm.
which makes it kind of unique for you.
Mm-hmm.
And you can play in that world by yourself, or you can start a server to allow friends to join you. And so, like multiplayer wise, you would just you create your server, you create your world, and you choose to enable allow people to join you or not.
Mm-hmm.
You can also host a dedicated server if you want to be able to have friends playing at different times. A lot of people have dedicated servers where they're running on a separate. Either you run it on a separate computer, or you can rent a server from somebody like a third party online. There's a lot of different hosting services that provide that, so that you just pay a fee and you have your world running like 24/7 all the time available.
Now, how does that work as the game's going to be entering into the Xbox space? Because I know a lot of my audience are console-based players. How does that kind of server element work for the console players?
I, I mean, it works basically in the exact same way. We really wanted to. We've been pushing a lot to have the game as as how do you say, like the exact same experience on the PC as on the Xbox, and we have
Mm-hmm.
crossplay, so you can play together with people from whichever platform you choose.
Mm-hmm.
So it works the exact same way. I guess the difference is you might not want to have your Xbox running 24/7 for weeks on end.
Mm-hmm.
So like you can definitely host your game, your world on an Xbox and have everybody join there. But when you turn it off, then your friends are not going to be able to play, obviously, because you need to have this one server that's hosting the world. So in those cases, it is could be interesting to look at, like, okay, the Xbox players, just like the PC players, can utilize in renting a third party server in
Mm-hmm.
case they want to have it running 24/7. But or you just leave it on, I guess.
Yeah. So I ask this out of ignorance, so pardon me if it's an obvious answer, but if I'm an Xbox player and I'm the one that created the world, if I turn off the game, can I come back to that same world?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's
Okay.
everything is saved, so you'll have the save file for your world,
Mm-hmm.
and like the host, I mean, the player who starts the world is the one who has the world. So in case you're playing on a friend's world and you want to continue and that person does not want to continue, you will have to get like the world file from that person in case would want to continue. And that's also possible. You can it's a little bit complicated with the Xbox because you're not like on a PC where you can just like copy over files and send them on an email, but it's definitely possible using the micro, like the Xbox app on the PC. You can access your save files if you'd want to.
Gotcha. That's really cool. That's really cool. Now, you mentioned that it's crossplay, and that's got to be super exciting for you guys. Crossplay between Xbox, between the PC versions. Now, where's the PC version available? Steam, Itch, where are we talking?
The PC version is on Steam and on the Microsoft Store.
Okay.
So yeah, those two platforms.
Gotcha. Very cool. We had a listener write in that was asking about keyboard and mouse being available over on the console side. Is that something that you guys are working towards?
It's something that we want to support. It's a little bit more complicated than we would have hoped, not just like enable it and just have it there. So at launch, it's not officially supported, but it does partially work. The mouse is completely disabled, sadly, but the keyboard works for certain things. Like, but it's very limited. Like you can input text inputs for signs, like when you name things, and I think you can use a few of the keys, but it's definitely not supported at launch, but it's something that we're looking at to have in the near future.
Gotcha. Makes sense. And that would make sense because the game's launching into game preview over on Xbox. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly. That's what they like. It's on PC. It's also, I mean, where it's called early access for Steam, for example.
Hmm.
Um, it's it will be in that state until we finish basically all the biomes that we have promised. That so the game is it has a complete end.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Now, Edward Luddington wrote in over on Twitter and he asked, what was the first moment where in playtesting it really felt like the game was coming together, that you guys knew you had something here?
Do you mean like on Xbox or in general?
Let's take it in general because that could be a big question if we're not careful.
Yeah, that was, I would have to say, I think that's probably even before my time then, because that was during when Richard was working on this game by himself. Then he would post it on itch, like, or he
Hmm.
posted it on YouTube and stuff, and he'd have people playing, and it kind of got quite popular then already. People were he got a really positive responses, like even before the game was released at all. So I think that he probably realized that okay, this is actually could be quite interesting. People seem to be interested in it.
Gotcha. When did you guys decide to bring it over to the console space?
Um, that's a good question as well. I mean, we've been talking about it for a long time, but I'm not actually sure exactly when we started developing that. I don't. I can't remember it exactly, but I mean, it was.
Well, all right.
Uh,
So ballpark it for me. We're talking like 3 years ago, 2 years ago, recently is 6 months. Can you ballpark
I
anything
mean,
in there?
the game released how much was it? It was a little over 2 years ago now, in
Mm-hmm.
February of 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess there was talk about it kind of early, but it was maybe just like say a year or a year and a half ago that we were looking at it a little bit more seriously, I guess.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Now, we mentioned earlier on that when you jump in with other players, up to 10 players can be with you. Now, are all of these players friendly? Are they enemies? Are they somewhere in between? Like you can make the mistake of betraying people. Uh, how does that work? Talking about other players in your game.
In general, I would say this is a game to play with your friends together, like cooperatively.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main focus of it. Like it's not a game where you, in general, just join a random server and hunt them down and try to kill them and destroy their experience. It's not like a PvP game in that way at all.
Mm-hmm.
But you can enable PvP damage if you want to. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but then you have to both players have to explicitly click on the PvP like enabled button, which makes you give and receive PvP damage in case you want to like just try it out, fight it out or something, or if you decide to, okay, on our server we have two camps and we're actually fighting each other. I mean, that's completely up to you. Valheim is a game where it's you can really make with it whatever you like, not whatever you want, but like it's really open ended in that way. It's not controlled of you have to play in exact this way.
So it's you mostly you versus the elements and the world's enemies then.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to talk about those world enemies because there are some dope things that I have seen depending on the biomes. Each biome seems to have their own kind of big bad, but I'm seeing things like stone golems, what I think was a deer with some incredibly cool antlers that have lightning or something going on. I'm also
Yeah.
seeing skeletons. Like, talk to me about your enemies that you have to battle.
Yeah, I mean, there is a whole number of incredible creatures to conquer. I'd say in Valheim, like you have each biome has unique enemies, and
Mm.
everything like has serves kind of a purpose. Like they have a very um, thought through design. with them, and every biome also has a boss, and the boss is the most badass thing you're going to meet in that biome.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm really impressed with the designs, and it's kind of like everything a collaborative effort, but a lot of it has been like Robin, our main art dude, as he calls himself, I think,
Mm-hmm.
who
Lead
brings
art
up a
dude.
lot of these
Mm-hmm.
designs. He's really creative. Like he just everybody throws in their ideas. He does a bunch of sketches, and he gets these crazy badass looking bosses and monsters for us to hunt.
Now, I know you said you weren't a lore guy, but are these all coming from like Norse mythology? Or are they just, hey, what's cool?
It's a little bit of a mix, I would say. It's Viking inspired lore as
Mm-hmm.
much as we can, but we don't limit ourselves to have to be like historically correct in any way. So it's there's definitely a lot of stuff like that. It's just it's just cool and badass and fun. So then that's okay for us.
Gotcha. I get a kick out of it in watching the gameplay because I haven't had a chance to play yet, as it's launching today on console. But like seeing Odin's ravens pop in and talk to you are pretty darn cool. I think. Now, talk to me about these biomes because that can mean a lot of things to a lot of different players. I'm looking at jungle gameplay. I'm seeing gameplay kind of on a beach near water. I would imagine you've got some snowy tundra type stuff. Talk to me about your biomes.
Yeah, I don't I like we don't really have a jungle, but I mean it's more like a Nordic
Forest.
forest,
I
you
should have
could say,
said
but
forest. Yeah.
yeah.
It's
But I
green.
mean, there's you start out in this green pasture kind of area,
Hmm.
and it's also, I mean, it's a forest, pastures and water and oceans. It's kind of it's a colorful, nice, fairly friendly area, and there are mostly animals like boars and deers, which are a little bit like the boars are a little bit dangerous, and then there's our little graylings, which are little creatures that might show up and try to beat you as well. But it's really how should you say, an adventure of a lot of people spend a lot of time, you can say, in the first biome. Like
Hmm.
you can play for a ton of time there. Some people are fine with just staying there, but then eventually you'll see oh, you come to the Black Forest, which is like the more dangerous forest area, um, and eventually you'll find a snowy mountain, and you'll want to maybe you'll want to conquer those and get up there, and then you'll have to get some gear, become stronger to be able to manage that. And yeah, then after that, there's a few more biomes. You have the plains, what you said, and you
Hmm.
have the Mistlands, which was our latest update, which is kind of a more mysterious, a little bit more magical area, much further down in the game. And right now we're working on the Ashlands, which is like kind of a hellish lava landscape, which you'll be able to get to later.
Ashlands just sounds cool.
Yeah.
Like that just sounds cool. Uh, in general, when so it's a survival game, obviously. When you die, are you kicked back to the very beginning of your game, or do you have like, I don't know if checkpoints would be the right way, but take that how I mean it. Do you have points where you can return to? Do you lose all your inventory? What happens when you die?
Yeah. So when you die, we're kind of we like games with a challenge. And when you die, you drop everything that you're holding at the moment, like your whole inventory, all your equipped gear, and everything, and you create a tombstone where you died. And you also get a little marker on the map so you can know this is where you died. And you will really want to return to that point and retrieve your items to be able to continue. And if it's really difficult, maybe you'll have to get some craft a little bit of other gear to be able to get back there. So it's a really bad idea to go very far out and die in the hardest area. Some people, there's tons of stories of you run up on the mountain, a snowy mountain, you die of cold and you lose all your gear. But then you realize, oh, I can't actually reach the top of the mountain without any gear on. So it might
Hmm.
be stuck there until you get something else to be able to get there. So yeah, you'll probably learn this very quickly that okay, I need to be a little bit careful where I go. Just don't run out and die in the middle of the ocean and not be able to return there.
Gotcha. That's funny. That's funny. So a lot of hard lessons learned in players' future for sure. Is that
Yeah.
correct? Fair enough. Okay, I dig it. I dig it. I'm looking through a lot of the player questions, or listener questions, I should say, and a lot of them are excited by the idea of getting to play with their friends via crossplay. I think we've answered quite a bit of that. We did have a question from Hassan who asked about if we could expect a PlayStation release in the future. Now, before we answer that specific question, I was wondering if you could talk about how you ended up kind of connecting with Xbox to launch into game preview.
Um, yeah, I mean, I wasn't part of the initial hellos of
Mm-hmm.
that because we have our publisher Coffee Stain, who is also helping us a lot with yeah, with the whole publishing side. But at some point, then there, I think they reached out and were interested in seeing this on the Microsoft platforms, and yeah, I don't actually know the details of that. I'm sorry.
No, no problem. Any expectation to launch into other console platforms?
Currently, we're only looking at the Xbox, but yeah, you never know.
Yeah, never know. Cool, cool deal. I'm curious if you could talk about co-op play. Is there local co-op play, or if like a gentleman was asking about could he play with his daughter on the same Xbox, or are we talking like you want to have two separate experiences and that's the best way to do it?
Yeah, so it's a little bit. We do not have like split screen, or you cannot play two people actively at the same time.
Okay.
But one variant of that, you can definitely play, of course, multiplayer. Like if you have two Xboxes, or if you have one Xbox and one PC, or
Mm-hmm.
something like that,
Sure.
you can definitely share the same world, and I really recommend trying that if you can. But you can also, like, if you only have one place to play, you can each create your own character,
Mm-hmm.
and you can actually play in the same world if you're playing separately. So, for example, you could create the world, start playing around a little bit, and then your daughter wants to play, then she can create her own character and keep playing in the same world, and you can like kind of take turns running around in that world and building on your houses and stuff. So, in that way, I guess you could. It's a little bit different way of playing it, but if you only have one machine, that's one way of doing it. But
But
it's
that's
also a
still
game where just like sitting together playing. I think that's also kind of a social experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm thinking like that's kind of a cool thing too. Like no matter what, they can inhabit and work in that same world thanks to the way you guys have designed those server elements. I can just jump in and continue the experience kind of asymmetrically if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. I dig that. One more question that I want to make sure I don't leave out on a listener here. Massive Gaming wrote in. Is there a frame rate or target resolution for the Series S and X that maybe differs from PC?
Yeah. So, I mean, the PC is uncapped. Of course, you can attain whatever FPS you want to, in case you have like insane hardware and stuff like that. So,
Hmm.
so in that way, it's different. Like for Xboxes, and you have to have a set frame rate. It also has to sync up with your TV and all that. So we do have basically for the series, we have two different modes, which are the quality mode and the performance mode, and we're also going to add a balanced mode. I don't think we got that out to the release, but probably going to add that later. So the
Hmm.
quality mode basically is at 4K, 30 FPS,
Hmm.
um, but the performance mode, which I personally would recommend everybody,
Hmm.
I'm not sure why you
I'm right with you on performance mode all day. Give me them
yeah, exactly.
frames.
Then you have, but then it's 1080p, but then it's 60 FPS. So I mean, I would choose 60 FPS over 30 any day, but it's of course up to whoever wants to choose. And the balance mode, which will be probably added later, is more for other kind of TVs if you have like a different refresh rate setup, because that will be a 40 FPS mode with a little bit up graphics anyway. But other than that, they are very similar. Like the other than the resolution, they are almost identical. So I would really recommend the performance. And for the Series X and the S, it's basically the same FPS wise, and the Series
Hmm.
S has a little bit lower resolution for the same modes.
Is it
Uh,
difficult to code for different machines like that? I mean, the Series S and X, we hear a lot about how they are, the similar, different. Does that really affect development in any way?
I mean, yeah, because you have to take into account the hardware limitations of each platform. Like we're also, since we're also supporting the Xbox One, like S and X, they and those just well talking about FPS, those have a little bit lower specs. I think that they are at both the One X and the One S are at 30 FPS for both 1080p and 720p. Um, but yeah, like so since we have to support all the way to the Xbox One S, that means that memory wise, for example, we really have to push like we can't have too much. We can't go over the memory of what we can get and what we can achieve on the One S,
I didn't
for example.
realize it was going back to Xbox One, but it's One S specifically, not like the original launch Xbox One.
Um, yeah, the one as well.
Oh,
I'm like
okay.
okay, if I'm totally honest, I'm bad at all. There's so many versions of Xbox.
Yeah,
I'm
there
really
are.
confused. Like if
Well,
I
that's what I wanted to clarify. I didn't want to get you in hot water by accident, so I was like, all right, let me make sure, because sometimes I mix those up too. I
yeah,
gotcha.
yeah, but it should be like there's the one and the one S and the X. So yeah, it should be supported for all of these platforms, like both the one and the series.
Well, okay. So as we're winding down, I'm watching this on my second screen the whole time we've been talking, just different gameplay, and I'm watching this Viking, nearly naked Viking dude battling Greylings, a boar, and there's a giant troll chasing him. Oh, he died. That's a shame. That was the coolest thing to do, to watch this troll come out of the woods and just start stalking this dude. That was crazy. Do you have any favorite moments? Like, to me, that was a cool moment to watch. Do you have any favorite moments that you can remember, or just things that you really like that you hope people get to see for themselves in Valheim?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to spoil too much of it because a lot of it, I think, is the surprise aspect of just like you mentioned the troll, for example. If you're running through the forest and you have no idea that what can come at you, and then all of a sudden there's this huge troll with this big club and everything is just like pounding
Mm-hmm.
after you, that could be quite a surprise moment for you. That could be very interesting. And there's also there's several more of those types of experiences, and
Mm-hmm.
like one of my favorites can happen. Kind of don't want to spoil this, but like if you're in the ocean, there can be some interesting encounters, or also in the other biomes as well. And then another thing, which has been always been such a like a kind of a typical Valheim moment, is when chopping down trees. There's so many ways to die from chopping down trees. Like you chop them down and they fall over you, and you're just smashed like instantly. And that is for many people that is like the moment okay, this is the game. Okay,
I know what this game's gonna do to me.
yeah,
Okay.
exactly. And then there's yeah. So I think that is something that people really somehow they enjoy to die in that way.
Yep. Yep. Some people are gluttons for punishment. That's cool. Okay. So a question I missed that I meant to ask earlier is, how difficult has it been to translate a lot of these like PC menus, point and click, that kind of thing, to a controller space?
Yeah, we do have full controller support for the PC as well before, thankfully.
Okay.
But for the menus, there's definitely been quite a lot of work done to make sure that it's always going to work, and like it's as intuitive as possible to be able to use them using only a gamepad. But with that said, I mean people have been playing with only a gamepad for years already, and seem happy enough with it. So but yeah, but there's
Gotcha.
been quite a lot of work done. Like we reworked quite a bit of it, and updated the graphics of it a little bit as well. So it should be on par for the Xbox release.
That is so cool. Well, I want to congratulate you and your team on launching into game preview over on the console side. I look forward to more updates and just kind of seeing what happens. I hope you'll be willing to come back when the game launches officially. I guess you would say, since you guys are on game preview. No pressure on when that will be, because I know as a developer, it's like, dude, I'm just trying to get it out there.
Yeah, we
But yeah,
basically have two more biomes that we are working on. Like, and who knows what'll happen after that? I mean, hopefully we have tons of more things to do as well. But basically, we're working on Ashlands. Then it's going to be Deep North. Uh, Sometime around when we're finished with that, it will be full the full 1.0 release. So
2023, 2024. Is that even something you can speculate for?
no,
I'm
I'd
asking
rather
out of
not
ignorance.
speculate. I like
Okay.
the nice thing with us is we can just work on it until we feel that this is done. Like we're in a position where we can really make sure that we are happy with it and that it's a quality product rather than having to rush it to a certain date. So can't
Dope.
really say at all when it's going to be.
No problem. No problem. Well, listeners, again, Valheim available on all your Xbox platforms, I believe, the day that this goes up. So that's fantastic. Of course, it's over on Steam and Windows PC. Is that correct?
Yep.
Awesome. Let them know where they should find you guys on social. If you guys have a Discord you want to point them towards, or anywhere that listeners can connect with you if they check out Valheim.
Yeah, so we have a very big active Discord community, which is the best way to connect with other players. If you're looking for people to play with, if you want to share screenshots of your crazy moments or your builds or whatever, really go into our Discord. If you have technical issues, and there's lots of people who are very helpful there. Other than that, we have our website, and we're also on. Several of us are on Twitter. You can find me there at Smårs, and several of the other devs. We are kind of active there. At least we post new things, and at the moment we said we're going to be a little bit more open with the development of the next biome, so we're posting things that we're working on now and then there. In case you want to reach out or have any issues, you can always find us there.
Excellent. Well, listeners, thank you for checking out another developer interview here on the Xbox Expansion Pass. Remember, you can support us over on Patreon. You can drop a like, follow us on all your podcast platforms of choice. Jonathan, once again, thank you for joining me, and have a fantastic rest of your day, man.
Thank you. Have a nice day.